Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Yoga Sciences podcast and YouTube channel. I am your host, Pan. I have Claudia Montes here today. There's quite a story how we met. We met at a yoga teacher training, and that day she came in. I was like, wow, something about her that I have to get to know her. She's different in a really special, good way. And after we connected, we talked, and that year she had it was back in 2013. She had a Halloween party, so I decided to show up early and then go home early to study for my occupational therapy exam. But then my husband now at that point, he came in with his siblings, and we ended up talking for 5 hours. And that day I knew I was going to marry him. So here we are. Because of her, I met my husband, and now we have a beautiful daughter. So she's amazing. She's a yoga teacher, and she has a lot of different experiences teaching different styles of yoga. And she's just so calm, and I love her energy. So I'm really excited to have her on today to share with us. I've been trying to get her on. She has a really, really busy schedule. So I'm glad I was able to catch her today, and we can do this together. Thank you so much, Claudia, for being here with us. And she has 3 beautiful children, and yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and for your beautiful light, for sure.
How you get involved with yoga, and Paula, you said at one point she was your teacher.
Right.
She taught you for a while. Like prior to that, were you
Sure.
learning yoga before? And we talked about water at some point, and
Yeah.
talk about that as well. But let's start with your journey, your story.
Yeah. So my first introduction to yoga was when I went to school in Manhattan. I went to high school in Manhattan, and I would travel from Queens to New York City to Manhattan, and there was the Integral Yoga Studio on 15th Street, and I would pass by it on my way to school, and then I started to become involved and take yoga classes there. So I must have been about 17, 18, 19 when I started. And I've had this like in and out love affair with yoga. It was in my life for a long time, and then I didn't practice for a long time. And then about 20 years ago, I started practicing again. I moved to a new neighborhood in New Jersey, and somebody introduced me to an amazing teacher in Nyack. And I started going to her. But even more interesting, another class that I was taking, the teacher there said to me, Claudia, you have been teaching yoga for so many lifetimes. You should be teaching yoga. And I never thought of myself as a yoga teacher. And if it wasn't for Christine from Sukha, she really encouraged me to take the teacher's training. And so Paula had a teacher's training, New Age Yoga in Nyack. And it was about a 2-year program because you accumulate hours. And so it was an amazing experience to go through her training and to learn from her. And then I'm also very interested in Kundalini Yoga, not just Hatha Yoga, as well as all of the spiritual practices that involve all the 8 limbs of yoga, not just the postures, but really trying to delve into the inner space where I reside, right? Which the postures help to get into, but are a part of the whole. Right. And then after I graduated from Paula, I taught, and I went to another yoga mountain, and that's when I met you, right? Where I did the yoga therapy certification. And I've been teaching yoga, for a little while now, on and off, and I incorporate yoga in everything I do. So as an adult, I went back to school, and in 2015, I got my master's in social work. I started a program at the Bergen County Jail where I teach yoga there, and it's been going for about 5 years now. And I'm back in, my yoga teacher took it while I was working full-time at a psychiatric hospital and in a daytime treatment center for people with schizophrenia, major depression, and bipolar. And I use these techniques, and I use this tool of yoga to help all of my clients and everybody that I meet, every other human, understand that we are spirit encapsulated in this amazing form, that just like the flower has that form or the tree has that form, but they have that life, we are just like them. And not unlike the trees that keep falling leaves every season, we constantly grow new ideas, new cells, and then they fall off, and there's this constant regeneration. And if I can begin to intentionally regenerate to be the next evolution of myself, the next bloom that I come. So if I'm a rose bush, one of my blooms is this, another one of my blooms is that, and I continue to bloom, but I have to prune, and I have to take care, and I have to put soil that is full of nutrients. And so that's my job. My job is to put soil around me that's full of nutrients, to get a lot of sunlight, to be around people that are uplifting, so that I can continue to bloom in the different areas of my life. And, just like a rose bush has different blooms at any given time, we as humans also have different projects and different things and different ideas and different relationships. And, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm an explorer, right? So I use this practice, and I use the meeting of people like you to help reflect upon me, who I am, right? I didn't always feel that I was beautiful, that I was lovable, that I was even worthy of living. And it's been a really, really long time since it was a long trail, and it has continued to be a long trail of understanding where my own self-doubts come from, and those feelings of, like, my past feelings of wanting to not be alive still creep up when I'm just driving or on the computer, and I'll get this crazy thought. And now I understand that I'm not my thoughts, that I'm not the things that keep the programs that are in my head, but that I am so much more. And then I can say, I can then be compassionate to myself for those thoughts. Whereas before I would have this thought and I would say, oh, that thought is me. I'm no good. I didn't send that thank you note. Right? I missed that appointment. How could I do that? Like, how could I disrespect people like that? And I would even get to a point where I just didn't want to live anymore, because I would have all of these, like, how could I be like so undisciplined? And so when I do find myself being undisciplined now, through my practice, I can be compassionate to me and say, oh, I think that might be that 7-year-old me that's still struggling with those thoughts. And so I can bring compassion to that part of me, right? Because I'm like all parts, like just like the rose bush, right? If one of the blooms dies, the bush isn't going to die, right? And so it's the same thing with myself. If I have these intrusive thoughts, which have plagued me for my whole life, I know now that it's okay to have them. Maybe not everybody has them, but a lot of people have them. And we're human. It's okay. It's like, if I may, we're like radio frequencies, right? Our brains are like radio frequencies. If we tune into the radio station that plays jazz, we're going to be listening to jazz all day long. If we tune into that part of us that's constantly critical, we're going to be listening to ourselves all day long saying, oh my God, you didn't do that. Do you remember when you were 12, you forgot to do that? Do you remember that guy? But if I tune into the radio frequency of gratitude, right? Of of knowing that the breath is always there for me. I don't have to pay for it. I don't have to get it. All I have to do is to learn how to use it to my benefit. Then things seem to come from the inside a lot more, right? So I'm able to kind of compartmentalize, the parts that are not working or the parts that are hurting, and bring light to them and try to understand it. Like one of my teachers said to me, if there's something that you're doing, find out the first time you thought about it, right? The first time that you felt like you were unworthy, right? And to me, not that you ever have to go back to a place of trauma or experiences that hurt you, but to bring back that seedling, right? That seedling, and perhaps begin to understand where that little seedling came from, so that then you can wrap it in some more love, right? Because that seedling that's telling you you're no good, or me that's telling me that I'm no good or not worthy or whatever, it just wants love. It just wants to be heard. It just wants compassion. And if I can't have compassion for me, for the parts of me, for the 5-year-old that was abandoned, for the 12-year-old that was raped, for all of these parts of me, then I can't have compassion for another human being. And then all my interactions are just topical, right? It's like putting makeup on. It's like I meet you, I put my makeup on, and that's my face for you, right? And I am a makeup artist. I love makeup. I am, because I feel, and that was my first venue into this whole like becoming better, is as an image consultant. Because I felt, I know for me, when I put not now, because now when I put makeup, I just feel old. But when I teach somebody how to wear makeup, and they see themselves for the first time in a different light, it's life-changing, or when I help somebody find a piece of clothing that makes them feel empowered, right? Clothing protects us from the environment. It's one of the only things that we use to express ourselves in this daily life. It's an expression of yourself. And whether you say you're into fashion or you're not into fashion, you wear clothes. So wearing your clothes with intention to portray who you are, what you represent, the values that you hold dear, all of these are the choices that you make through how you hold yourself, in the practice of yoga, but through the practice of discipline yoga. The practice of yoga is also the practice of your words, the practice of your clothes. Yoga is just a place of standing. So where do you sit? A place of sitting, right? So where do you sit? How can you use these tools, these clothings to when I'm not feeling well, I can then put on my best outfit. And I've just empowered myself. So I use makeup, I use clothing as another tool to build us up. If you have a closet full of your best friends, can you imagine? Everything you wear just tells people that you are strong, that you're powerful, that you're willing, that you're here, that you're present, that you have taken a moment to honor you. And if you take a moment to honor you, you might take a moment to honor me, right?
Exactly. Wow. Very insightful. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and giving us the knowledge, the insight, and I really do like the analysis of the mind, and it's like the radio frequency. I love that way of expressing how that's just great. I love that concept.
Yeah.
Mention so the yoga, from the different styles of yoga. Like, what styles of yoga do you teach?
Okay, so I'm very eclectic. So my style of yoga is very eclectic. It's kind of like my philosophical stand as a social worker. I'm a strength-based perspective person. I am a harms reduction perspective person. So my yoga practice brings a little bit of everything. My hatha yoga, of course, but my favorite yoga is actually Kundalini Yoga.
Kundalini?
Kundalini Yoga. Yeah, because I really feel that it's a technology. I feel that with Kundalini Yoga, and Kundalini is just one type of practice that is considered a technology, right? That changes your chemistry quickly. I was just doing a podcast, listening to a course, and the gentleman said, if yoga is like a vehicle to take you to the next place, some practices are like taking a bicycle. Some practices are like taking a car. Some practices are like taking a boat. Kundalini is taking a plane straight to your destination. And so one of the reasons that I love Kundalini so much is because it focuses on energetic centers. So some people call them chakras, but of late, I've been trying not to use the word chakra because it's kind of like, ooh, chakra, right? But they're energy centers. And not only are they energy centers, they're also glandular sources. So we have the pineal gland, we have all of these glands that are in our bodies, and they are in places where these chakras are. And so through Kundalini Yoga, the energy that's at the source of the spine, right, at the source of the spine, begins to flow up the spine through all of the different meridians and all of the different channels of energy or chakras that then begin to kind of radiate up and up and up from the lower frequencies of the and then you begin to feel this air. I begin to feel this airiness and this connection to source, to life. And then when I look at everything, I know that I am this plant. I am this plant. I am you. You know? But we're looking at we're seeing each other through prisms, right? And so for me, Kundalini, the repetitive movements of it have helped me kind of like break through so many of like my own personal limitations. Like we do things like this for 2-3 minutes and you think you can't do it anymore, but why could you possibly not be able to do this? You know, only your own mind is telling you can't. Like there's really no metaphysical, no metabolical reason why you can't do some of these movements. For me, maybe somebody in the body can't, but for me, the limitation comes at the place where I think I can't do it anymore. And I'll give you a story of how I've used this practice. I was at up in the Adirondacks with my family, and we love to go to this place called Chapel Pond. And it's a beautiful pond, and there's cliffs on the other side. There are rocks on the other side, and it's a little ways to swim to it. But my daughter wanted to swim it, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. Almost at the other end, she started to freak out, and it was far to get back. And I didn't think about this when I started on this venture, right? Like what would happen if she gets cramp? And so here I am trying to help her and me. And I'm thinking, I will never be, we're going to die here. I'm never going to be able to bring her back. And then I thought, I remember my Kundalini. Every time I thought I couldn't keep going, I was able to keep going. And so that gave me the remembrance that there is another battery inside of me that I haven't yet accessed. And that's what all of these chakras are, different batteries that provide us with different, like I was able to then bring my daughter back because I remembered that I could, my practice allowed me to break the barriers of perception that I set for myself. And it crystallized for me how this practice is so tangible, you know? So that's why I love Kundalini. I want to be a Kundalini, official Kundalini teacher. And I've been trying for a couple of years now to get to the course, like to the intensive, not just like the weekend course, because I feel an intensive would really give me that like immersion. So I'm looking forward to doing that one day. But when I do my classes, I use Kundalini techniques to help, and I expose people to that type of practice, because I just think that it's incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful. And then also, you know, through Gail, through Yoga Mountain, we do a lot of playfulness. You know, I do a lot of like dancing, and I'll bring, I've been known to bring my crock pot to class with stones. And so we do like a walking meditation where we'll lay the stones on a rug, and we'll walk around and then walk over the hot stones, the warm stones, so that we can feel the radiating warmth of the earth coming from our feet and up through our bones and our muscles. So I love to play in my classes. I love to bring things that are different, because I am, everybody can do a hatha yoga class. I think that in this day and age, there's so much access to yoga and the traditional, you know, yoga flows and yoga practices and stuff like that, that I bring my own creativity into my practice, and my own child into my practice. We do a lot of partners yoga. So, you know, I am eclectic in every way, shape, and form. Yeah.
I love that you're just really creative, and you have a lot of fun in your classes. The way you deliver it, it's amazing. And I really like the idea of bring hot stones, crock pot. Oh my goodness, I never thought of that. Like, can you imagine? I didn't even think of it. I mean, I've done that type of massage before, but
Right.
not like in a yoga class.
Right.
And another thing is, I also like Kundalini Yoga. I don't do it as often as I plan on doing it. But when you're actually doing it, you can really feel the energy. And especially, like you said, the repetitive movements can really like work your endurance, mental strongness. Like it prepares you mentally and physically. It's because you got to hold that pose. You got to keep it up, you know. And especially if you're not used to it, you're gonna get sore for a couple of days because of all the repetitive movement, but it makes you stronger mentally, physically, and emotionally. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that oftentimes when we have mental resistance, we don't have what I feel is that a lot of times when we have mental resistance, we need the tools to help us combat that resistance or understand that resistance, right? So Kundalini is another tool to help us in the daily life. And just like in a regular hatha practice where you're holding and you're engaging and you've got your dynamic oppositions and all of this, which brings you to a place. Kundalini brings you to a different place, which for me is a more radiant and strong place. Like I feel like if I went after a yoga practice, after a Kundalini yoga practice, I feel radiant. I feel my skin glowing. I feel, because I'm engaging everything in a very dynamic, different way. Not that you can't do that in a hatha yoga class, right? Holding, and it's just as dynamic. But maybe what I'm thinking is that maybe because the Kundalini for me has helped me in so many other areas, you know, that's why I keep going back to it. Yeah. So I think for me that it has given me the most tools, you know, because I am super flexible. And so a lot of the hatha yoga postures are very easy for me. And so my work is to come back, to come back, to come back. And that's what my teacher tells me all the time. I'm naturally the peacock, right? I'm naturally out there. But what's inside? You know? And so I'm working on what's inside. And so Kundalini helps me work on what's inside.
I love that. That's awesome. So how do you in your social work experience, how do you connect, like bring yoga into your social work
Everything.
practice?
Everything I do is yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I do is yoga. I'm doing my dishes, I'm doing yoga. I'm watering my plants, I'm doing yoga. I'm talking to you, I'm doing yoga. Because yoga is not this thing that you do on a mat. It's this life that you choose to live with intention, to live with grace, right? And to live within your body and to understand and to listen, right? So when I work with individuals as a social worker, first I teach everybody to breathe. I teach two things I teach in life: to breathe and to stand. Right? So I'm talking to somebody, at the hospital, for example. I'm doing an interview. We begin to breathe together. I said, let's just, take a breath, I have handouts that I give about the diaphragm and how to breathe. So I bring the breath into everything I do. And I also encourage everybody. A lot of the people that I work with have addictions or not so much eating disorders, a few handful of eating disorders, but mostly, addictions or schizophrenia or the depression, major depression, even minor depression, depression that's not major depression. And one of the things, the gifts through yoga is to be able to feel yourself in your body. So one of the gifts that I've had is and that I teach people is to be able to be in touch with your body enough that you can feel the sense, the change, the subtle changes that happens when emotions arise. So for example, I know for me that when I'm interacting with my family and I get this knot in my stomach, something's happening. And I know if that knot becomes a tension in my throat, in about 2 minutes, I'm about to lose my temper and I'm going to yell. So I know that about myself because I feel in my body what's going on and I recognize the signs. So what I encourage everybody, all of my clients in my social work practice to do is to learn how their bodies feels at rest. Like it's the baseline, right? So when you do any kind of assessment, you establish a baseline, right? So what is it? What do you feel like naturally? And then when do changes start to happen? When do subtle changes start to happen? To begin to realize that, all of a sudden I got this cramp in my chest, or I'm talking to you about something and I am starting to shake my leg, right? Or I'm talking to you about something and my mind is starting to just not pay attention. So when I work with individuals, I really encourage them to begin to understand their bodies and the flows of energy in their body, and especially those little sensations that are indications of what is to come. Because you don't just blow out of control. Through the years, you've lessened and lessened and lessened that buffer between thought and action so that it seems like you're automatically out of control. But there's actually a whole bunch of processes that are happening before you lose control. So my job in life, I guess, is to help people understand those little subtle signs so that they can begin to master themselves. I don't know if that makes sense.
I love that.
Yeah, did it make sense?
Yeah, it does. I really like I like the steps you follow, like a routine, step by step. Speaking of routine, what are some of the things that you do that are non-negotiable, like the routines that you have to do every day just to prepare yourself?
Oh, Lordy. I have to admit that I am not a regimented person. I don't have a practice where I sit and I meditate every day at a certain time. And that is something that I'm working on, that I've been working on all my life. It's just, and that's probably one of the roots of the most compassion that I have to have for myself, because I feel, I feel that if I had that, I would probably be so much more able to share with others in a more meaningful way. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like part of the not sitting for practice is part of the not wanting to show up, because if I show up, I'm going to have to continue to show up. I don't know that was like, so it's fear. Yeah. It's the fear of like, if I am truly the greatness that people see in me, it's scary.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Definitely. Yeah.
Like, people tell me I like so many things, and it's like, I think that, I don't know, maybe perhaps as humans, that's part of our humanity, is to not be as bright and as wonderful as we truly are, because we're afraid that, I don't know, for me, I'm afraid if I show up, then I'll have to continue to show up. What if I don't continue? What if I like become this radiant being and then all of a sudden I lose it? I'd rather not be a radiant being at all than have it and you know what I mean? I don't know if that's the process that I'm talking about, like that I'm thinking of, but thinking about why I don't do rituals. Like, I have rituals. I pray every day. I go out in nature every day. I sun gaze every day. So there are things that I do, but I don't get up and have a practice. But during the course of my day, at some point, I will meditate. I will do yoga. I will engage with the sun. I think it's incredibly important to sun gaze. I think that that's how we get the light into the pituitary gland, into the pineal gland. That's how we get our messages from the universe, is through this beautiful dynamic light. And so I do sun gaze. I go out in the morning or when the sun is setting, and I try to sit in nature as much as possible. So I don't have a practice where I get up in the morning, I do my 20 minutes of practice and I do that. But during the course of my day, I will incorporate all of the things that are important to me, whether it's the meditation, the service. I do a lot of service, and the postures. And when I say say I do yoga every day, when I'm reaching for the milk in the refrigerator, I'm engaging my joints, I'm extending, this is my body, and everything you do in triangle, you do when you're reaching for something, you know what I mean? So, when you're standing, you're always standing in mountain. It's not like you have to get up in the morning and stand in mountain for 2 minutes. No, you're standing on the train, you're in mountain. So yoga is not like this thing that you do as a thing. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of going about things. Right? You're eating mindfully, you're eating with intention, right? You're cleaning the house. You're not just, I can't believe I have to clean the house. You're cleaning the house because this is what brings joy to you. And even if it doesn't bring joy, it's your duty, right? And then there's one of the things that we experience through yoga, for me, that I experience through yoga is that the duty is not so painful anymore. The things that you have to do that you don't really enjoy doing, they're not painful anymore, because you've reduce the resistance to doing them, and all of a sudden you find the joy, right? So when we, they always tell us that well, somebody said, life is, what did they say? Life is pain, but pain is ignorance, right? So we live a life of suffering. Life is suffering, but the root of suffering is ignorance. So I might feel like I'm suffering having to clean my house, or, whatever task is unpleasurable. But the only reason that I'm suffering doing it is because I'm resisting the act that it has to be done. And I'm not joyfully engaging in the actions that are presented in front of me, right? So the next right step, right? So I went through rehab back in the 90s, in the early, like 1990, I went to rehab for a month, and then I was shipped off to another rehab in Texas for eating disorder for 3 months. And so I learned a lot in those four or so months of intense self-analysis. And so, to be able to come back to that place of letting go of the resistance and saying, this is the next right step. Whether I like it or I don't, this is the next right step, right? And then that brings a new lightness. It brings a new joy. Let's see where I can find the joy in this. And the thing that perceivably doesn't seem like you want to do, but often becomes the most important or the most meaningful.
That's so true. And yeah, yoga is really like a lifestyle. You're right. Pretty much, everything that you do is.
You breathe all the time.
Yes.
Your yoga crack. I do this all the time. Like breathing in through a straw.
Yeah.
Because it helps to cool me. Like when I start getting like stress in my family or like picking on me or whatever, I sip through my tongue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that kind of tells the audio, your system to begin to relax and to cool.
I love that. You mentioned sun gazing. How do you do sun gazing? Because I interviewed Timothy about it, and I don't know if it's different how he does it and how you do it.
Well, I don't have a philosophical way of how I do it. I basically, when the sun is starting to come up, I gaze and I allow and I sit and I feel like I am part of nature, which I am part of nature, but somehow as humans we think we're removed from nature. Wow. The door just like opened and like, nature's in here. So that's all I do. I don't know how he does it, and I'll be interested to find out how, because he's the one who introduced me to it.
Oh yeah, I'm like, what is it have for me to do it? That's interesting. I was like, who knows about it first? He does it in the morning. He hasn't been doing it very often, but when he was practicing it every single day, he used to do it in the morning, barefoot, like outside in nature.
Yes.
And he'll look at the sun, and then at sunset.
Yeah. So barefoot is important, right? Because it's our connection to the earth, right? And then I feel for let me not get into a whole story about the feet. Because another thing that I teach people is how to stand. How to stand, how to use your feet to hold you, to sustain you. If you're not aware, if you don't have movement in your little pinky toe, where else in life do you not have awareness of movement? So my teacher, we do a lot of toe splits in my classes. We do a lot of toe work. We do a lot of ankle work and balance work, just very micro movements, because those are the micro movements are the things that are holding you together. Right? And you can find these big movements in other classes. You really can. You can find all of these big movements in other classes. But I find that oftentimes these little micro movements are not addressed in a lot of classes. So that's one of the things, because I am so flexible that I have to work so much, I'm coming in, that becomes kind of like the focus for me. And I help people I encourage them to feel, to come in so that they can ricochet out, right? The further in, the further out. Just like the roots in a tree, right? The branches extend so high because the roots are being able to extend so low. And so that's the same thing. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but the sun gazing, it's the same. Yeah, just I have a tree that I go out where the sun comes out first, and I go sit under the tree and I look at the sun.
Beautiful. That's awesome. That's amazing. I don't want to take too much of your time. I do have like a million questions to ask you.
So
like
nice.
one of the things
This
is books. What are some of the books that you recommend?
Cool books. Well, what are some of the books that I recommend? If I can remember some titles, I would be really happy. Well, I have I'll show you my favorite yoga book, like yoga instruction book. And this is what I use. What's the name of it? Oh no, did I leave it somewhere? Anyway, it's just a toolbox book that has so in terms of learning and teaching, I mean, there's a lot of really great books out there, but this for me is my favorite.
Oh.
Right? And it's Yoga Teacher's Toolbox, and one of the integrating mind, body, and spirit. And what I love about it is that so it's a binder, and every page comes out. And then you have warm-ups, but then you also have, and this is what I take to jail as well, and I leave photocopies to them so that they can learn. So it has the posture, it has advanced, and then it has modifications. It has, it's a very Ayurvedic, right? So it talks about the Ayurvedic properties. It talks about the prana vayus, which is the energy flows in the body. And then it also talks about the chakras that are engaged. And in the back, oh, it even has an affirmation. So the affirmation for chair posture is, I know, it's so good. It is, I am the witness of body and mind holding the posture of life. Wow. So that's the affirmation that you should say while you're in chair pose, right? Awkward chair. And then it has like really like word by word how to experience the posture, you know? With each inhalation, draw the breath energy from the earth to the center of the body. So as a teacher, these are great cues. And as a student, these are great cues. So this book I would recommend for everybody because it really, you don't have to have a teacher next to you, and then most teachers won't even tell you a lot of this stuff, right? Yeah. So this is like my favorite book. I use this all the time. I go through it and I'll design my classes with this book as a natural sequence. It has a wonderful moon salutation sequence. It's just a really great book. And in terms of spirituality, you know, I pick up all sorts of things. I have books on yoga. Like there's one called The Yoga of Discipline, which I've read a few times. And recently, the last time I picked it up, it kind of bothered me because it has a lot of talk about God, which I never realized before. But now I'm becoming more sensitive to the words I use because God tends to divide people. Isn't that odd? Right? It's so weird. But anyway, so this book is called The Yoga of Discipline by Swami Chidivilasananda. Anyway, I love this because what I was talking about is like, doing the dishes, cleaning the thing, engaging with people. This is your daily life, The yoga of discipline is the yoga of your daily life. And I guess that's where I got the idea of it being a lifestyle and not just a practice. But I love that book as well. And, of course, the Gita is always good to read. And yeah, I don't know.
I love that. I'm going to have to check those two books out.
Yeah, these are two of the ones that I keep at hand all the time. Yeah.
Excuse me. That's awesome. Any last few advices that you'd like to share with the listeners Any tips?
I guess my leading words is how I close all my classes, right? Is may the long-time sun shine upon you. May all love surround you, and may the bright light from within you guide your way on.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yes, compassion for yourself, and then that radiates onward.
Awesome. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Yay! Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing your practice. And you have always been such an inspiration to me. From the first day I met you, I was like, wow, she is a dynamo. I am so proud of you. And I'm so blessed and proud that you are my friend and you are my teacher. Yay.